Welcome, Dr. Dean Graves. I am so honored to have you here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, before I hit record, I was sharing how I had read your bio and it really resonated with me. And for that reason, I think the conversation around elevating our collective vibe and understanding your journey would be really beneficial for a lot of my audiences who all of us, given that we all are on a journey, and it helps to be able to resonate with others who may be living something that will help us improve our lifestyle. So
Okay.
having said that, maybe let's take a step back and you could share your path to where you are at now.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of years to share, so I'll try to condense it in just a few words. The majority of my life was unremarkable. I was commercial real estate developer for my business career. And along about my 50th year, I came to the awareness that all that I was doing, while I, relatively speaking, may have been successful at it, it wasn't bringing me greater happiness. And so, consequently, that for everyone or for anyone is in and of itself an awakening. Awakening is nothing more than that realization that all of this stuff that I've been doing and been working on and so focused on is not making me happy. And our objective in life is to experience greater happiness. That's why we think that we're doing all of these things that we do that are conventionally um, thought to be normal lifestyle. So from that point, I began looking around as to what alternatives that there were to that lifestyle and those life ambitions and so forth. And you begin to discover that all of those things that we do are not able to provide us with greater happiness. And so consequently, we change our life focus and our perception of self primarily, which is one of our major objectives in this lifetime, is to explore ourselves, and that is everyone's common purpose to explore ourselves. Our mission in life is whatever we choose to do. We choose to be a physician or a lawyer or accountant or whatever it is that we choose to do. That is simply the mission that provides us with the opportunity to have certain types of experiences that will allow us to fulfill our purpose in life, which is self-exploration. And so that essentially is my journey and why I got and how I got to this point is surrendering all those beliefs that dominated the majority of my life and has led me on this journey of self-exploration.
And from my understanding, one of the modalities that you apply is meditation. How did you come upon meditation and how has that helped you?
Well, meditation is a tool that allows us the opportunity to become more aware. In meditation, and I've taught meditation for over 2 decades now. And almost invariably, every person, every student, every acolyte that comes to me or to a meditation uh, opportunity, practice, comes because they're running away from the stick, and the stick hurts. And so consequently, they begin a meditation practice hoping to find some relief from the stick. And one day, and these are immutable experiences for everyone that follows that path, you get a bite of the apple, and the apple tastes really good. And so your motivation transforms from running away from the stick to getting more of the apple. And so consequently, that is why I began to meditate. I was running away from the stick. And consequently, I had that experience of getting a bite of the apple, and it totally transformed my motivation and my seriousness about pursuing even deeper levels of meditation.
And how has that helped you in other areas? Maybe you can share perhaps your relationships or your connections with others. Has the meditation modality helped with that?
Well, it transforms your life entirely. It transforms family relationships. It transforms friends more often than not. You will surrender those that you previously considered to be friends, and you develop new friends because you've changed. You become, we are magnets for the nature of our experiences. And so, consequently, if we change the nature of the magnet, then we change the nature of our experiences, which includes all the people in our sphere of influence that are attracted to us, and we consequently are attracted to them. And so it becomes, depending on your degree of willingness to participate, it transforms the entire nature of your life.
And could you perhaps even elaborate on one of the aspects I know that not everyone is in tune with or aware of is the fact that when you do become a little more, I would say, in tune with your true nature, that the nature of your perception of the world maybe shifts. Like if I'm speaking for myself, and I'm wondering if this is true for you, that you perceive things more energetically, like you were saying, that you attract more of what you're in tune to. Perhaps you can share what that means. When you say attract, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know where my mind is going when I think about those concepts.
Okay. The nature of our experience is dramatically different from what most people perceive it to be. Um, and the mere understanding that fact that our purpose in life is to explore ourselves, when you contemplate that, that in and of itself becomes transformative. We perceive that we create thought, and every single thought is a complete experience. We perceive, because of our low level of awareness, we perceive that an experience lasts some period of time, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. But within that perceived experience are dozens of thoughts. And with every single thought, we are obligated to make a decision. And that decision, very simply, is in and of itself a complete emotion. That decision is, this thought feels good and I like it and I want more of it, or it doesn't feel good and I don't like it. I don't want more of it. We're all motivated to get more of what we like. And we learn by virtue of the process of analogy. Everything that we experience is an opportunity for comparison and contrast of this new experience, this new thought, with the inventory of thoughts that I have processed to date. This is all part of the process of exploring ourselves. We attract thoughts, which are our experiences, and as we attract those thoughts, we become more aware. And it is our purpose. We exist within a range of consciousness, and it is our purpose to be, first of all, awaken and then become aware, and to complete our journey through this range of consciousness, we will become awareness. And so consequently, these experiences are simply opportunities that we attract. It's how we experience creation. Every thought that we could possibly think or process, shall I say, is already created, and it is simply our task to attract those thoughts that we like, that bring us greater joy. And so consequently, that is the nature of our experience. And in that is that self-exploration that, that we've been talking about.
And to draw another analogy, or tying back to what you were mentioning moments ago, you were talking about the stick. And it almost seems analogous to the fact that while the stick may be something we've attracted, we've now learned that the polarity of what is feeling unpleasant, and now we're seeking something more pleasant. And it sounds like through meditation, you were able to then find what you were using as an analogy, the apple, and
Yes.
experiencing that which is the polar of that, which felt more pleasant. When someone is unaware, then these metaphors become very helpful. How do you guide those individuals or souls who may not even be aware that the pain or the stick is not the reality that they need to be experiencing?
Well, that depends on their condition of being and where they are in the process. Everyone begins the process. What we're describing is the process of healing. And everyone begins the process wherever they are. In other words, I might wish that I was at a certain level of awareness development, but that doesn't mean that I'm there. So I have to start wherever I am. The process is the same for everyone and progresses according to how earnestly that we undertake the task. The I need to back up to fill in a void there that might help with the understanding. Our design as humans, as participants in this range of consciousness, is to create a hierophant or a false identity or an ego. It's all the same thing. And this creation of this hierophant begins from the moment that we're born. As we begin each lifetime in the condition of our cumulative consciousness pattern, which is actually our metaphysical self. And we simultaneously exist in both the metaphysical world and the physical world. And science calls our metaphysical self our time space environment, and we are participating in what they call the space time environment. Same thing as physical and metaphysical worlds. But we begin each lifetime in the condition of our metaphysical being, and we, from birth, when the first thought that we process, we begin to create this hierophant. We create this hierophant for the sole purpose of getting more of what we like. Even as an infant, we have experiences, and we know what we like, and so we adapt our behavior in our, at that stage, very elementary perception of self in order to attract more of those experiences, more of those rewards, I guess you could say. As we develop, our awareness incrementally increases automatically up to a point, and our hierophant changes minutely. We modify that hierophant, that identity, that ego, minutely, depending on how successful the beliefs that we have incorporated into this identity are effective. If it's effective, I keep it. If it's not effective in getting more of what I like, then I dismiss it, and I incorporate usually another one. While we're an infant or small children, the primary source of our experiences is our immediate family, siblings, cousins, small group. When we get into the 6th year, go to school, and our world expands, and we have significant greater opportunity in order to have experiences. So we modify our identity dramatically at that point. We again modify our identity dramatically when we go through puberty. One of the reasons that teenage years are often so difficult, particularly the adolescent years, is that we have a significantly increased capacity for awareness, but we have no information. And so we're trying to gain information in order to find some basis of operation for our hierophant and to get more of what we like. We will stay at that level of awareness until such time as we consciously undertake the task of escalating our awareness. Even as adults, with some people go through their entire life with no significant increase in awareness beyond what they had when they were a teenager. They had greater experiences, greater information, but their awareness is not increased. And so this, by the very nature of this, we are creating stress for ourselves, because stress is not the byproducts that science and medical science has defined, the manifestations within the body. Stress is any experience that we interpret negatively. It doesn't feel good. That's stress. We've experienced stress because that experience did not meet our expectations that was put forth by this false identity. And so consequently, we're creating constantly stress over and over and over and over again. And it's we can have immediate gratification from some experiences, and some people choose that as their sole source of happiness, is that and another immediate gratification. But the effect is that if you don't cure that belief that you've incorporated into your hierophant, then you create suffering for yourself. And so this compounds that stick. All of this is the stick, because we're continually attracting more things that we don't like, that we don't, and we have to keep changing this hierophant. And that is essentially, that is the stick, but that is stress and that is suffering. And this is what causes us, that motivates us to become more aware and to change at some point in our life, hopefully, that we have that realization that all of the stuff that I've been doing isn't working. It's not bringing me greater happiness.
I like this analogy that you use, the terminology of what stress means. And the polar of it is that which makes us feel good, opposite of stress. Now, I'm sure you may agree with this, as though there are so many souls who probably really do feel stress, but don't have the modalities and awareness of how to truly find soul satisfying peace. And so they look for things that feel good in all the wrong places. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because it's probably something evident to you and I and many people, but how do the rest of us who actually have some knowledge share this in a way that's meaningful so we can help others? I hope this question
Good.
makes sense.
I understand, I think, your question. So lead me elsewhere if I'm not if I'm not going where you want me to. Awareness is both the discovery tool and the healing tool that we all have in order to discover what needs to be changed and to change it. But awareness is directional. And while we're in this period where we are still unconscious, literally unconscious, and constantly recreating this hierophant every time that we process a thought, our awareness is pointed outside of us. It's directional. So we perceive that the world around us, the environment around, people, places, and things around us, are the source of providing us with more of what we like. And that someone that has enhanced that stage is relying purely on immediate gratification to get more of what they like. And there's no storage facility for that good feeling, because you have to renew it every time you finish one experience. You have to do it again in order to get that feeling. Awareness becomes particularly the purpose of meditation is to help you to, or teach you to invert that awareness inside and become exploring to becoming able to explore yourself and determine what it is inside of you that is the magnet that is attracting the nature of these experiences. So the healing process is it can only be done by the individual. We cannot heal someone else. We can guide them, you can lead the horse to water, but they are obligated to do the drinking on their own. And so consequently, we reach a break point. That's why awakening is so important, that you come to that self-realization, that self-awareness that all this stuff that something's wrong. I'm not getting happier. I have to keep doing this immediate gratification. And so by learning to invert that awareness, to learn to change the magnetic nature of your beingness, your condition of being, is how anybody and everybody heals and advances along the consciousness or the enlightenment path. Now, one of the essential things that we have to do when we are in this range of consciousness is make a choice. And that choice very simply is, and it's called the choice, we have to choose whether we are going to polarize service to self or service to others. And in that choice is the decision either to continue to enhance this hierophant, this false perception of self, to the nth degree, or do we begin to surrender that and choose the path of service to others? The importance of that path is that is the foundation for the almost all the rest of our evolutionary process. Those that are, and we're seeing it dramatically in the U.S. culture as well as the culture of the world, a bifurcation of the population for those that are either still unconscious, meaning that they're still in chaos, or that they have made that decision that they're going to enhance that path of separation and enhance their service to self ideology. The other portion of the population is making that decision. In the protests that we're seeing on student campuses again is a good illustration. Whether you agree with their ideology or not, their choice is obviously service to others, because that's their ultimate intent, regardless of what the content or political nature of their statements are. That is what they are demonstrating, is that choice of service to others. But that is a conscious choice that we have to make. And we do that because of the way that we are, the way that we feel. And that choice will determine the balance of our evolution through the consciousness path.
I really like the way you've segued into this concept of this collective choice. Maybe those weren't your words, but the way I perceive that information is that going from the point of awareness to knowing self-realization is my responsibility. That is how I will find my true joy. And then recognizing that that vibration is also occurring on a more collective level.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the protest being an example, that the true intent behind it is for the greater good of humanity,
Right. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And so that really helps me, because the theme of this particular podcast is elevating our collective vibe. And I I think you answered the question. Like, what I was wondering is how can we, I, Shilpa, or individually, Dean, how can we do our part in elevating the collective vibe?
Well, we are magnetic, and the more that we heal ourselves, the more magnetic we become. And so we influence those that are around us. And we learn by observing others. This is the process of analogy. We perceive, and this is the basis of marketing. You're a marketing expert. That's the basis of marketing is we show someone with a product that looks happy with the product. And so my perception as a prospective purchaser is, well, if I had that product, then I would be as happy as that person. And it seldom works out that easily, but that notwithstanding, that's how we make those decisions. And so consequently, we observe people in our sphere, in our available range of the experience that we perceive to be happier than us. As we become more aware, then we recognize those inherent qualities about that person or that that person's behavior demonstrates. And so we begin to mimic them. We begin to behave as they do until we no longer need to pretend. We become that person. And so consequently, that's how the population elevates its awareness and elevates its progression along the evolutionary scale, consciousness scale, is by emulating those that we perceive to be happier than we are. It's a simple determinant. If they're happier than, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And so we begin to mimic that until we become that. And then we look for another person or people to do the same thing again to take us even higher.
And everything you said, it absolutely resonates with me. I mean, even the most simple example when you said you emulate others. I'm a mother, and I very intentionally will be honest with my son. I'm constantly work in progress, but I also meditate every morning. And I'm hoping that the little seed of thought goes into his mind or consciousness, because sometimes he will sit with me for a minute or two. But I'm hoping that I'm setting an example.
Well, you no doubt are, but your child is about how old?
He's 11 now.
Okay. Well, your child is not at the same range of consciousness that we are, particularly me. Uh, he's far above us, and he will demonstrate these characteristics of that higher range of consciousness as he matures. And we are experiencing a magnificent transformation of the population and the planet itself. The global warming, as scientists define it, is indicative of the planet healing, and it will continue whether we're here or not. The Earth is, I mean, the population is not going to restrict the Earth's healing, the planet's healing, but the population is at a crossroads, and we are going to be provided over the next 5 to 6 years, essentially the opportunity, the intensified stimulus for the people within the population to make that decision of whether I'm going to polarize service to self or service to others. And the population will isolate into those respective groups and divide. We essentially, there are multiple Earths. We perceive there's one, but there's actually multiple Earths. We're not aware of it because of our low level of consciousness. Earth is designated to be, or the planet itself is already a fourth density planet. We are a third density population for the most part, but virtually all the children that have been born since the mid 2005, 2006 range are overwhelmingly fourth density. And so the children that we're seeing on college campuses now are those children reaching relative maturity where they can become influential within the global population. But as that continues, then the population will bifurcate and there will be a continuation of the third density experience on another Earth and the continuation of the fourth density generations on a fourth density Earth, and they will not interact.
Well, I'm so glad we're going deeper into this. And I know this podcast could go on for hours because you just, my heart is singing this with several concepts you just brought up. One of them, just to back up a little bit, this is
Okay.
more of a conversational podcast, so I think it's okay that my son was named very intentionally Omni by my mom, who was deeply spiritual.
Mhm.
And she had this intention with his name that every time she would utter his name, she would say it as Om.
Mhm.
And the, the primordial sound of the universe of peace. And we call him Omni, but which also has a multiple name. And I named my business after him, Omni Mindfulness. And
Very appropriate.
yeah, and I love the idea that she used to say the same thing, that this new wave of souls that are being born are of a higher vibration level.
Mhm.
And I know when I say these things, most people think, oh, she'll us off on doing her
Are you just
esoteric.
too woo-woo?
I'm just too woo. So I try to stay in my little box and not let other people know. But I think with you, I can be more candid that this is something that really makes my heart sing, particularly when you mentioned this concept I'm not familiar with, the second earth and density. I'd love for you to enlighten me a little bit there, because one of the things I'm seriously passionate about is our ecosystem, our environment, how we're affecting nature.
Mhm.
And I have a very deeply spiritual take on it.
Mhm.
And I think of everything in nature as a vibration and a level of vibration, and then we attract things that we are harmonious with. But I'm not familiar with this concept of the density in Earth. Would you mind sharing a little bit?
Sure. The all of creation is divided into ranges of consciousness that are defined as densities, and each density is divided into a multitude of dimensions. And so, if you think of a density, if a density were a mile, a dimension would be an inch. And so we are progressing in our evolutionary growth incrementally through each density. We don't have to go one by one. I mean, we can jump ahead. There's no rule that says we can't jump ahead depending on how we change ourselves. And so consequently, the nature of the experience that we currently and historically have enjoyed is a first density planet, which for ease of explanation is inorganic matter, and a second density planet, which is plants and animals, anything organic that enhances first density. You got to have a first density planet. This is what all the gases that the scientists see, and oh, there's a formation of a planet. I see it's gas. In another billion years, it will be a planet. Well, that process begins way before we see the gases. And this is consciousness. It's just consciousness at a very low range, very low level. And each planet is unique because of how that consciousness decides they want to be. And so we have some planets that are more developed than others. Obviously, Earth is a fully formed planet. Second density was a decision. It didn't organically just mysteriously happen. It was a decision to make Earth a second density planet enhancing a first density. And humanity is a third density range. Third density is the first range of consciousness where an individual soul, as we perceive it, was created, and that soul, which is a consciousness pattern, will continue its entire evolution as that soul. In other words, first density and second density are nondescript. The experiences they have are very valuable and very informative, but their learning it at an incarnation is not preserved from lifetime to lifetime or through the evolutionary process. We are the first range of consciousness of a range of experiential densities where we have sufficient awareness in order to do what we're talking about doing in becoming awareness. The next range of consciousness is higher, closer to the creator for the ease of understanding. And they will do the same thing that we do in this range of consciousness, only they already are awareness, and they will be doing the same thing with love. The next range of consciousness above them will do the same thing with wisdom. And those are the three experiential densities. The next range above that is a creator being density, the sixth density, and they do the same thing with unity. The range above that is stillness. They will become stillness. And then after that is when we reemerge with source, where we started from. So the whole process and the intent of creation is to send consciousness far away from the creator by diluting its awareness and allowing it to uniquely evolve back to source, bringing with it all the experiences and the explorations of self that it enjoyed along the journey. And by doing that, consciousness fulfills the purpose of creation, which is so that the one infinite creator might know itself by experiencing itself. So a density, if you remember back to high school chemistry, the concept of molarity, and which is essentially the density of particles within a solution. And that is a good illustration of what a density is. A lower density just is greater concentration of particles within the solution. And it's dense, it's heavy as we evolve, and that becomes less dense and less heavy. And so our vibration increases because we're not confined. And our frequency increases as well because of our freedom of movement, I guess, within the solution, to continue that comparison.
So, I've heard this among a lot of my spiritual friends, is this concept of expansion. So it sounds like this is analogous to expansion, because when things are dense, they're more contracted. But as you expand your consciousness or expand your vibratory level,
Yeah.
it is similar to what you were talking about. And when you were saying different earths, is that something as in like literally earth, or it's also this expansion of our consciousness of what we call earth?
Well, it's the variety. I understand that all of creation is a concept. And so what we perceive to be physical, that there's distance, that there's space in between, that there's movement. Movement is just change. That's all movement is. But we perceive movement as natural, inherent. We can't live without movement. But there are universes that don't experience movement. And I can't conceive of how they can function because I'm programmed to function within the universe that perceives motion. But there are multitude, these are all distortions, and creation is made possible because of distortion. So our evolutionary process is surrendering our perception of self and expanding that perception of self in order to graduate from fourth density. They begin as we are, as we perceive ourselves and as an autonomous being, but in order to graduate from the next range of consciousness, they will surrender that autonomous perspective of self and become what's called a social memory complex. And that is the signal that they're ready to graduate to fifth density, the next range of consciousness, that they have adequately surrendered that perception of self and perceive of themselves as a larger single organism. We perceive ourselves as an autonomous organism. The next range becomes the social memory complex that begins the fifth density experience, and they will expand the nature of that social memory complex until they are ready for sixth density. And sixth density is the density of unity. And so consequently, it is a vast, vast expansion of that perception of self and unification again with the creator, or towards the unification of with the creator.
So when you use the term healing, there's two minds. The very logical, non-spiritual part of me is like, oh, heal, as in, oh yeah, I got that cut, we got to heal it. But when you're saying healing, it sounds to me like you're talking about expansion.
Healing distortion. It's only the distortion that we perceive our confinement and our isolation as an autonomous being. So the more that we surrender that and see the unity of our and our cohesiveness, our common effort of simply walking each other home to the source that we began from, it is healing. We're healing those false perceptions of self that we all share at this range of consciousness by design.
So I have two more questions and then we'll wrap up. I could talk to you for hours. One is, it's again a little bit esoteric, but when you talk
Everything
about,
we've been talking about is esoteric.
but it's something that I dwell on all the time. And this is why I probably am such an isolated geek. But I want to understand. I guess it won't be a very linear question, but how do we, those who are aware, and it's, definitely you are more even aware of these concepts than I am. I think on a intuitive level I get things,
Mhm.
but I couldn't articulate it as well as you have. But how do we then at least encourage those who are not necessarily on the same wavelength, but maybe understand, yes, it's good to be good to humanity. It's good to recycle. It's good to be kind to your neighbors. How
To
do we
be a
bring
model,
into the concepts? Oh yeah, just to be a
to
model,
be
right?
to model who you are. It's all that we can do. I mean, their awareness has got to bring them to the point that they assume responsibility for their own evolution. And in this range of consciousness, all that we can do is model and give them the opportunity to model that. But the awareness and the awakening and the awareness is up to them. We can lead them to water, but we can't make them drink.
And I have to admit, though, even with the knowledge and intuition and tools I have, and ambition to expand, and sometimes that's so esoteric I can't even explain it to my husband. But I'm also flawed. I am continually work in progress. Maybe it makes it harder because I meditate because I'm so aware of things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it drives me a little bit batty because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like a little hyper aware of stuff
Mm-hmm.
and thoughts. How do you reconcile that?
Well, you use that as a tool because you're feeling stress.
Yes,
That in and of itself is stress.
it is
And
stress.
so that is a message to you about what you need to become aware of that you still have incorporated into your the beliefs that have created this hierophant and begin to surrender that.
Um, how did you understand the concepts as effectively as you described each concept on a very intuitive level? I'm like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. But how, like you said, your story, your journey, you started out in real estate, then you understood perhaps what I'm articulating is pain and the
Mhm.
desire for more.
Sure.
And you've arrived in a place where you've used or utilized modalities like meditation. But how did you decipher or understand these concepts so effectively?
Well, contemplation. I also, as you surrender this hierophant, and you surrender the constraints of your perception of self, then the universe is available to you to answer any questions that you may have. You have to pose the questions. They're not going to show up and say, "This is what you need to know," because they don't know that you're ready for it. So as you develop questions, we are all students, regardless of the level of consciousness, we're all students. And so you pose questions to those higher classmen about what you need to know. And they are more than willing to explain that to you.
That's wonderful. And Adina, I hope I can have you back again because I really sincerely enjoyed the depth in which we were able to go. If there is any parting wisdoms for those who are like, whoa, that was very esoteric of a podcast, but I wonder what I could do because I'm interested in collective helping the in you know the consciousness or the vibration. What's three takeaways that are practical that somebody can do, that's listening to us today?
Um, Take the time to begin to invert that awareness inside, and become aware of what are the aspects of you. The healing process is twofold. We every experience that we've had in our life that was not pleasant was a message to us about something that we were supposed to learn. And that's a homework assignment. And you remember from school, if you didn't do your homework, that doesn't mean the homework's still not due. You just didn't do your homework. And so we get to keep that homework assignment in the form of an emotion until such time as we do the homework. Once we do the homework, then we can put that burden down and never have to deal with it again. And so that's emotional baggage that we are carrying that depletes our energy necessary in order to escalate our awareness. Energy fuels our awareness. And so the healing process is becoming aware. You can do this by yourself, or you can do it with a therapist. And some of the books that I've written, I have some excellent exercises that can be self-applied that will help people do tremendous healing in a very short period of time, which accelerates their ability to sit in meditation. A lot of people think I can't sit in meditation. That's just my mind runs. Well, there's a reason for that. And if you understand that when your mind is racing and running, it's not because it's undisciplined, it's because you don't have the energy to control it. And if you think of yourself as an electrical outlet and there are a dozen hair dryers plugged into you as an outlet, none of the hair dryers are going to work right because there's not enough energy. So as you start unplugging those hair dryers, the one that's supposed to be plugged works just fine. The same is true with controlling your thoughts and controlling your mind and becoming more aware, as you have to heal this emotional baggage, which is a burden to carry, depletes your energy. And that is a major part of the healing process and advancing along the enlightenment process. As you escalate this awareness, then you have more energy to become aware of the beliefs that you've incorporated that are restrictive beliefs that keep you experiencing constant stress. And so begin the process. Just say, I'm ready to commit myself to heal myself. And now the healing has to be done by ourselves. There are guides. Therapists are a great source to help with that. Spiritual leaders are a great source to help with that. But you don't have to have them. You can do it if you live on a mountaintop somewhere all by yourself. You can still accomplish the same thing. And so I would encourage people greatly simply to make that decision. I'm not happy. I know that I'm not happy. So now what do I do? Then start looking around to see what you need to do, what works for you, who can you emulate to mimic, to be more like them, to reach that higher plane of awareness, and just begin the process.
I just absolutely love that point. And no, you don't necessarily need a guru or a particular form of spiritual guidance, but it does help, like you started, go inward and
Mm-hmm.
have utilize modalities. And those who are listening, they can in the show notes find a reference to your website and your books. So I definitely encourage those who are curious how they can become their own catalyst
Mm-hmm.
in healing,
Their own healing agent.
your own healing agent. And see, because I know this on multiple levels, I feel like there's so much hope that people are unaware of, like what they see in this physical world. They think, well, ultimately then there's death and there's this, and it just feels at times very dark.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've witnessed it from those lens, and because I sometimes forget what I know. What I
Right.
know is that I'm a soul, and what I know is that there's complete innate joy in connecting with my what I call higher self. And there's more to
Mhm.
this flesh. There's more to this being of what where we are. Maybe we could end with you sharing that because people need to know that there's something better.
Oh yeah, well, if you think that the nature of our experience, and I make this metaphor, if you imagine that we're on a sports team, the sports team, regardless of the sport, they practice all week long. They go through game films, the coach yells at them and all that stuff, and they exercise and they figure out what they need to do to be better in the game. Then you have a game on Friday night and you try to employ all of those things that you learned while you were in practice. Then the game's over and you go back to then another week to practice, learn, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can I improve on that? All of that sort of stuff. We're in the game right now. This is just the game that we're experiencing. And when we leave this game, when we leave this incarnation, we're going to go back and figure out, well, I meant to do that, but I didn't do that, and I need to do this to do better. And so it's a season. It's not just a lifetime that we're encountering. The average human has had over 3,000 lifetimes, and some as many as 8,000. And so it's a process, and we're in the game right now. We're in the intense part of it where we're supposed to remember what we learned during practice and put it into the game to do better. And so understand that you are eternal. You are the creator experiencing itself at this range of consciousness, and your greater happiness is contingent upon your commitment to become aware of that and surrender those perceptions of the autonomous self that keep you isolated and separated and perpetuating your own stress.
Well, on that note, I am going to um, say that this was so much fun. I loved our conversation.
Yeah, me
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, I like I said, hopefully I can have you back and we can go deeper on any facet of what we conversed on.
Yeah, I'd love to. Always happy to talk about this and hopefully provide people with information that they need in order to perpetuate their own journey.
Yes. And like I mentioned moments ago, if anyone's listening, please look at my show notes. Please see that Dean has provided so much value in his website, his books, and he has ways to help you. You can become your own, what did you call it?
Healing
Healing
agent.
healing agent. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.